Your prayers for your family never expired. Even in the moments when you felt unheard, when silence surrounded you like a heavy fog, and when time stretched so long that hope began to feel fragile, your prayers were still alive, still present, still working in ways far beyond what your eyes could see. There was a woman named Sarah who lived this truth long before she understood it. Every night, after the world had quieted and the last light in the house had dimmed, she would sit at the edge of her bed. Her hands would come together slowly, not out of routine, but out of need. She didn't pray for wealth or success. She didn't ask for recognition or ease. Her prayers were simple but heavy with love. God, protect my family, guide them, bring them back to peace, keep them safe. At first, those prayers were full of confidence. She believed deeply that change would come quickly. She imagined mornings where everything would feel lighter, where her family would laugh together again, where distance would be replaced with closeness. But life did not unfold that way. Her son, Daniel, had slowly drifted away from everything she had taught him. The values, the discipline, the faith, it all seemed to fade as he chose a different path. He rarely called. When he did, his voice felt distant, like he was speaking from another world entirely. Her husband, Michael, had not left physically, but emotionally he felt miles away. Work had consumed him. Stress had hardened him. The warmth that once defined him now appeared only in brief, fading moments. And Sarah, she remained in the middle of it all, holding onto something invisible. She kept praying. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Months quietly became years. Nothing seemed to change. One night her voice broke as she prayed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. God, are you still listening? That question carried the weight of every unanswered moment. It carried the quiet disappointment, the exhaustion, the doubt she had tried so hard to ignore. And yet, even in that moment, something within her refused to let go completely. Because faith, even when it feels weak, does not disappear. It whispers, stay. What Sarah did not know was that every prayer she had ever spoken had been heard the moment it left her lips. Not one had faded. Not one had been dismissed. Not one had expired. Because prayers do not follow human timelines. They do not weaken with delay. They do not disappear because circumstances remain the same. They live on, moving, shaping, preparing, working quietly in places the human eye cannot reach. Far from home, in a small apartment filled with noise but empty of peace, Daniel sat alone one night. The life he had chosen had not turned out the way he imagined. The freedom he once chased now felt like a burden. The excitement had worn off, leaving behind a silence he didn't know how to fill. He scrolled endlessly through his phone, trying to distract himself, trying not to think. But then something unexpected happened. A memory surfaced. Not a clear image, not a specific moment, but a feeling. His mother's voice, soft, gentle, steady. He remembered the way she used to pray for him when he was younger. He remembered the comfort he felt, even if he didn't understand it back then. He paused. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't running. I don't even know if you're real, he whispered quietly, almost embarrassed by his own words. But if you are, I need help. It wasn't a perfect prayer. It wasn't long or structured, but it was real. And that moment, small, quiet, almost invisible, was not random. It was the result of years of prayers that had never expired. Back at home, Sarah continued her routine. She still prayed. Not because she always felt hopeful, but because something deep within her told her not to stop. Over time, she noticed something subtle beginning to change, not in her family, but in herself. The same situations existed. The same problems remained. But her reaction to them began to shift. Where frustration once lived, patience began to grow. Where fear once dominated, a quiet trust started to take its place. She found herself holding on to peace in moments where she would have once broken. This was not coincidence. This was transformation. And sometimes, the first answer to your prayer is not a change in your situation, but a change in your strength. One afternoon, Michael came home earlier than usual. His steps were slower. His expression carried something heavier than exhaustion. He sat down across from Sarah, his hands resting on the table, his eyes avoiding hers at first. For a moment there was silence, then he spoke. "I feel like I've been lost," he admitted quietly, "not just at work, in everything." Sarah listened carefully. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush to fix anything. Because sometimes the beginning of healing is simply being heard. "I didn't realize how far I've drifted," he continued. "From you, from us." Those words, simple as they were, broke something open, not dramatically, not all at once, but enough to begin again. As days passed, their conversation slowly deepened. Walls that had taken years to build did not fall overnight, but cracks began to form. They started eating together again, talking more, listening more. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And still, Sarah didn't fully realize what was happening. She didn't see the connection between her prayers and these small, quiet shifts. She didn't understand yet that nothing she had prayed was wasted. Then one evening her phone rang. It was a number she hadn't seen in a long time. Her heart skipped. Daniel. She hesitated for just a moment before answering. "Hello?" There was a pause on the other end. Then his voice came through, soft, uncertain, different. "Mom." That single word carried more emotion than anything he had said in years. "I don't know why, but I felt like I needed to call you," he admitted. Tears filled her eyes instantly, but she held her voice steady. "I'm glad you did," she replied gently. There was another pause. I think I've been lost," he said quietly. Sarah closed her eyes. Not because she was overwhelmed, but because in that moment something deep inside her recognized the truth. This was the answer, not in the way she had imagined, not with sudden change or dramatic transformation, but with honesty, with openness, with a heart beginning to return. Over the following weeks their conversations became more frequent. Daniel began to open up, slowly, carefully. He didn't have everything figured out. He didn't suddenly become the person he once was, but he was trying, and that mattered. He started coming home more often, spending time with them, listening in a way he hadn't before. Trust began to rebuild, not perfectly, not instantly, but genuinely. One night, as Sarah sat once again at the edge of her bed, she realized something she had never fully understood before. Nothing had changed overnight. There had been no single moment where everything suddenly became perfect. But when she looked back, everything had changed, piece by piece, moment by moment, prayer by prayer. She had been waiting for something big, something obvious, something undeniable. But what God had been doing was something deeper, something lasting. She whispered softly, "You were listening all along." And in that quiet moment her heart finally understood. God's silence is not his absence. Delay is not denial. And your prayers, especially the ones spoken for your family, do not expire. They do not fade with time. They do not lose their power because you feel tired. They do not stop working just because you cannot see results yet. They continue. They move. They shape hearts even from a distance. They protect even when you are not aware. They prepare paths even when the way seems closed. So if you have been praying for your family, for healing, for unity, for guidance, do not stop. Even if it feels like nothing is changing, even if the silence feels heavy, even if doubt tries to convince you that your words are going nowhere, because something is happening right now, in ways you cannot measure, in places you cannot see. Your prayers are not lost. They are not forgotten. They are not expired. They are alive. And one day you will look back, not at a single moment, but at a journey, and you will realize that everything you prayed for was being worked on, piece by piece, all along. Not a single word was wasted. Not a single tear was ignored. Not a single prayer went unanswered. Everything mattered. Everything was heard. And everything was working.